All right, we are recording. Hey, Gosh.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. So good to see your
Awesome.
face.
You too. So, for everybody joining us today, I want to introduce my college roommate, who I call Ghosh, but is now being introduced as Sarah Sargent in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. We were college roommates, so we have known each other, not to age us too much, but for over 20 years now. And
Just a few years.
yeah, just a few, but had a lot of fun times together. However, we're gonna switch gears, and I'm gonna let you tell your side of the story. But once you shared with me what had happened with your family and what you're about to share with everybody, I think we both agreed it was really, really critical for us to get this information out, even though it's hard to talk about. I know I jumped offline with you really quickly when we found out the situation, and just wanted you to know that you're supported and you're loved. So we're going to jump into that. We're going to spread the word about water safety. 4th of July is on Friday. So everybody I know, at least on the East Coast where we are at, is going to be in water. I know Lake of the Ozarks, pools, recreational
Absolutely.
centers, everybody's going to be out and about this weekend. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
I know it's hard to talk about, but I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit about your vacation with Lucy and how something really, really quickly kind of flipped on the family.
Yeah. So we went to Branson, which is in Missouri, and we went there for Memorial Day weekend with my in-laws and ton of family with us. We had been out on the lake that day, had a great time on the lake, wearing our life jackets, doing all the things. And we decided since it was our last night, we are going to have one more swim in the pool for the kiddos. So it was myself, my husband, our four kids, and then my sister-in-law and brother-in-law and their two kids. Um, at that time, Lucy was wearing a life jacket to swim. She was 4 years old, which, if I've read the statistics correctly, is the highest incidences of drowning are usually in those little kiddos, four and under. So she wasn't a strong swimmer, um, outside of using her life jacket. So she wanted to sit on a pool chair, and I hung out with her. We had actually taken her life jacket off because it had chafed her and it was uncomfortable. And we sat there and just watched everybody. And then, probably about 5 minutes before we're supposed to leave, I said, Lucy, we got 5 minutes left. You want to just jump in, like the shallow end? This was ankle deep water, ankle deep. There, just to preface this, there was an 8-month-old baby in this water. Um, so all of us adults are around there. We're in the water with the kids. Um, Lucy had come up right next to me. She had gotten some diving toys and was just throwing them in the ankle deep water and was reaching for them, coming up to tell me, "Hey, I caught some." Um, and she, not more than, from what we've gathered from bystanders and my account, she had come up to me and sh had shown me what she had gotten. 30 seconds, less than a minute, 45 seconds at max. I am still in the same spot. I'm in the water. Um, there is someone next to me who happened to be a pediatric ICU nurse, pulled her out and said, "Whose child is this?" And um, all I could think in my head was, I'm not going to let my kid die. And I grabbed her and I immediately started CPR. I looked at the lifeguard and I said, "Go get the AED and call 911." I thank God every day that I worked in a hospital, and every 3 months we would have to do training on a mannequin as refreshers. And just instinct took over, and my training took over, and I couldn't feel a pulse and I didn't feel her breathing. So I just started. And I didn't stop until she took a breath. Um, and by, I mean, I could go into what I think transpired, but she was able to take a breath. Um, they had called 911. Branson is in the middle of Missouri, so we're not near like a huge city with a hospital. So the ambulance came. By the time they came, she was breathing, but she was not really responding. She was moaning, which I've learned now is that is kind of a typical response after something like this should happen. Um, but there was a doctor at this pool as well as the pediatric ICU nurse. They were assessing her this whole time after she had started breathing, just reassuring me that she was okay. The other point I want to mention is that we were in a condo area, so there were a ton of houses along, and this was a pool for the condos. It was extremely busy. Um, there were lots of people in the pool, um, which I think in some people's minds, you would say, well, that would make it safer. There's more eyes. No, there's not. It actually makes it a little bit more challenging for the lifeguards to see, and there's so much noise. This is silent. Drowning is silent. I didn't hear her scream. Lucy has told me um, one of the rings that she was using to just pick up, she had thrown, she didn't realize there was a drop off, and she had gone to get it and had gone into a place where she could not touch. So it went from that ankle deep water and had a pretty significant drop off. Again, right next to me. She was right next to me. Um, I had had my back turned for 30 to 45 seconds. So she was life flighted to Springfield, Missouri, where there are major hospitals. Um, by the grace of God and by all the life-saving measures, we were released within 24 hours. She is her normal self. She is amazing and resilient, and she was up and playing that next morning. Um, but everything that you read in books or stories online or anything, this is like your setup for a drowning incident. Um, and what we had learned from the first responders is that a day before on the lake, a little girl, Lucy's same age, had drowned. She was not wearing a life jacket on the boat. Um, and for me, I thought I've got four kids. Like I've got to be safe around the water. I've got to do this, this, and this. And I did all those things. Um, I would say the biggest thing that I regret was not getting Lucy in sooner for swimming lessons. I assumed she was safe with a puddle jumper on or a life jacket on when she was in the pool, but that is not going to save her all the time. Um, so that's just kind of how that transpired. And I'm glad that I can at least share her story and there's a positive ending, but most of the time there is not a positive ending. And when I tell people uh, Lucy drowned, usually we think of death, and what they labeled it at the hospital is near drowning. But that girl drowned. She was not breathing. Um, so it was a very traumatic day for us, all of us there. I've never seen my brother-in-law cry before, but um, even when we talk about it still to this day, he will. My kids were old enough to be traumatized by it. Lucy is our third out of four, and so my older two still talk about it to this day. Lucy does too. She'll bring up, the time that I drowned, and um, it's a good education piece for her and the kids too. So while we have a happy ending, that is not typically the case. So I'm glad I can at least share that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I know it's really hard, and I know we've talked several times about it, and it's never, I'm sure, going to get easier for you to share, and it certainly for me never gets easier to hear.
Yeah.
One thing you touched on and that I'd like to stress is that I know you and your husband, Mike, you are well educated, you are a resourceful family. You're responsible, you're not reckless, you're not careless, you care about your kids immensely. Given those factors, when we think about drowning, we think, wow, the family might have been drinking or not paying attention, or they were reckless on deck. What do you want to tell families in regards to your circumstances about being around water?
Um, all those things you mentioned are the exact things we take very seriously around water. Um, in fact, we had actually been having a conversation because we were moving to a different city i- after we got back from this vacation, and our home had a pool. We were talking to each other about how to make our pool safe when this happened. I had not been drinking that day at all, mainly because we had been on a boat, and you know, where I grew up, a lot of people went to the Lake of the Ozarks or some lake, and you always hear about drowning incidents. So I just, that day, it was a big no for me. We had four adults watching the kids. Um, I was checking in with all the kids, which I still do to this day. Um, every less than a minute, count them, talk to them, make sure they're okay. We had done everything the right way. I think, and I would still to this day say, yes, you should be doing all those things when you are around water. But I think the biggest thing for me that I wish I would have done sooner, and I think I mentioned this, was um, having Lucy and my youngest, Eloise, in swim lessons so that they are strong swimmers. And that doesn't mean I don't worry about them when they're in the water. I'm still there and I'm still going to do those safety precautions, but then they have the skills to be able to um, not just save themselves, but be strong swimmers, um, be able to get to the side if they need to, or understand those survival skills within the water, like floating onto your back, to catch your breath. And I, they need to have those skills too. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. So
Absolutely.
I continue to do all those things. In fact, at our pool, we have a gate around our pool. It is locked at all times. However, I've seen kids can climb and they will climb. Uh, Toys go in the pool. The kids want to get them. We have, and thank goodness our kids are at an age where we can talk about this, but it's a lot of times those little kids. So I think the biggest thing you can do is having them be strong swimmers, or at least swimmers with survival skills within the water, because they're not always going to have their puddle jumper. They're not always going to have um, their life jackets. And from what I've read too, it kind of makes them a little overconfident in the water because they're like, "Oh, I'm floating," but in all honesty, they're not. It's the life jacket that's doing that. Um, so I
Absolutely.
think that's the biggest thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There are going to be lots of people out and about this weekend, as well as this summer, but especially this weekend, especially in Virginia Beach and Hampton Roads, but I know in Missouri too. Um, what do you want to tell parents? What do you want to tell them to get the safety resources or the information out for this weekend? What do they need to know? Anything you would have done differently? What are the basics that they need to know about this weekend?
Yeah. Um, well, I think, like I mentioned earlier, one of my misnomers too was, oh, there's more people, there's more eyes. No, that actually makes it a little bit more dangerous. Because there's too many people to watch, or no one else is watching my kid. Um, so I think if you're going to be around water, those big safety precautions you can take. I know it's a fun time and it's 4th of July and people want to partake. Um, I think if you have kids though, water safety wise, you're, and I know I was right there too. It can happen in a split second. Um, Having your eyes on your kids, not assuming someone else is watching them. Um, you know, Not drinking if you can. I understand. I've got four kids. I get it. Um, but just so you are well aware of what's happening around you. Um, if they aren't strong swimmers, um, making sure they have some sort of life vest or something around them, especially if you're on a lake. Um, if they don't have those survival skills in the water yet, to make sure they have those safety devices. And I would always advocate for CPR training, CPR and AED training. That can save not just if a drowning incident should happen, but anybody's life. It can make a huge difference from when first responders get there. If you provide those life-saving measures immediately, that can really set that person up for being able to survive. So
Absolutely.
having those skills is absolute. I think everybody in America, I will say that um, to anybody. I think knowing CPR is everything everybody should know. So we're not
Absolutely.
perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked both about prevention, which is the swim lesson sides of things, but also there needs to be the responsiveness piece. And that's if something does happen, are we prepared for that? So
Yeah.
that's wonderful and absolutely valid as well.
Mhm.
One thing I stress to my coaches, and you touched on this as well, is, and I can't say this enough, is how quickly these types of things happen. How quickly, you said, I think within 30 seconds to 60 seconds, something that quickly can happen. So just stressing that diligence and over diligence is really important. Is there
Yeah.
anything else? I'm going to let you go for today. I know you're busy, especially since you have 4 kids, but is there anything else you would tell our parents or our audience today just about your experience or anything else that you would want them to know?
Um, I would say, kind of what I touched on before. I didn't, these are things to do, but I think it made it extremely more apparent after this event happened to us. And luckily, like I said, for us, it was a happy ending. Um, but do never diminish water safety. Water is fun and water should be fun. But there are a lot of responsibilities that go with it. And I think stressing that to kiddos and to parents, being educated is it could save somebody's life. So, but have fun, and be safe out there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your time.
You're
I really
welcome. Thanks for
appreciate it. I
having
love
me.
I love talking to you, even though it's hard topics. But thank you
It
so
is.
much, and I just can't wait to share this information with everybody because everybody needs to know, like I said before, how easily and quickly can happen. So thank you.
Yeah, and just one last thing, just as
Sure.
a happier note to end on, our Lucy, so this was 2 years ago that this happened. Lucy is a fish now. She is
Wonderful.
jumping into the deep end, swimming. One of the things that I love that she has been taught in swim lessons are those skills. So she will find, before we even get in the water, she will go, Mom, I see the edge over there. I can touch right here. The edge
Oh,
is
that's
right here.
wonderful.
And we'll go over, okay, well, what do you do if you can't get to the edge? Well, I float on my back, and we just review those things.
All the
But
time.
she's a rock star now, so she's our little
Good.
angel.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm so glad you left us on that good note because I
Yeah.
know, like you said before, some of those stories don't end as happily. So I'm so glad she's doing well, and I can't wait to see them hopefully later this year. But thanks for your time today,
Yeah.
friend. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
My pleasure.